Hello, I'm John Molesky, and this is Wilson Center Now, a production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. My guest today is Sumi Terry, director of the Wilson Center's Hyundai Motor-Korea Foundation Center for Korean History and Public Policy, and she joins us to discuss soft power and the phenomenon on Netflix that is known as Squid Games. Sumi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we dive into our advertised topic, I just want to welcome you to the Wilson Center, since this is the first time you and I've had an opportunity to speak since you assumed your position. And tell us a bit about your plans for the Hyundai Center.
Well, this is going to be, it's a Korea Center, which means it will cover all pertinent issues. And, my background is North Korea, right? I've been in the intelligence community, in the policy community, doing North Korea for many, many years, North Korea's nuclear and security policy. But beyond that, I really want to sort of delve into and really grow South Korea's part too, because South Korea is the 10th largest economy in the world. There's so much more going on. It's very dynamic. It's very important. So I want everybody to know there's two Koreas, and it's not just only about North Korea. So I want to also focus on South Korea and the region as well. That's why I'm really excited to have this conversation. It's something other than North Korea's nuclear program or other than Kim Jong-un.
I promise I will not mention either of those during our discussion, but thank you. Welcome aboard. It's really exciting to have you at the Wilson Center. So was Squid Games on your radar before it became an international phenomenon via Netflix?
South Korea's soft power was on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
Squid Game was not. About a year ago, I planned a big conference on South Korea's soft power, which I just held a couple of weeks ago. It was held a couple of weeks ago. And that was right before Squid Game became all that. So I didn't quite expect Squid Game, but I was already expecting this phenomenon called South Korea soft power.
So at the top offering in 90 countries, including the US, it really is quite remarkable because there's so much resistance to subtitles in the United States in particular. How representative is the program of Korean pop culture and of its soft power?
Well, South Korea's film and South Korea's soap operas have been quite popular, particularly in Asia. But this was the first time you saw truly a foreign language drama hitting top as a Netflix's top show in over 90 countries. I already thought that it was interesting when Parasite won Best Picture for Oscars. It was the first time that foreign language film won Best Picture category. There was not foreign film Best Picture, but Best Picture category a couple of years ago.
Yes.
But Squid Game just took it to another level. But this really all speaks to South Korea's soft power, which we again often don't talk about too often in Washington, D.C. South Korea has really, in many ways, become not only an economic powerhouse, but soft power, superpower, I would say.
And so for some people, Squid Games is introduction to plot, but as you mentioned, Parasite, the first non-English language film to win the Best Picture Award in the Academy Awards. So this is not a one-off or a fluke. This is a growing momentum of soft power. So where are we seeing it most? Is it in films? Is it in television? Is it in music? Where are you seeing the most traction for Korean culture around the globe?
So the Korean wave is called Hallyu. I would say it has really swept the planet, literally, as we're just talking about with Squid Game. But it's in pop music, it's in film, it's in other TV dramas, it's in gaming industry. Just need to ask my two boys, teenagers. It's all about K games now. It's in food, it's in education, it's in sports. You might have heard of BTS. The most popular boy band in the world, loved by people all over the world. BTS has just made history, being the first Asian group to win the top award at the top artist of the year for 2021 at the American Music Awards that President Moon Jae-in just talked about. And BTS also just spoke at United Nations General Assembly. Over 1 million people watched this speech made by this boy band. So it's really in, I would say, all areas of popular culture. And if I just, BTS alone, just to give you an idea, Hyundai Research Institute did this research just on Korea's economy. They bring in more than $3.6 billion to South Korea's economy annually, right? So when you look at pre-pandemic times, it was estimated like 800,000 tourists to Korea, okay? That's like 7% of all visitors to South Korea. They visited South Korea because they said they were motivated by this band. So again, this is nothing to sneeze at, because it really also even helps the economy. And then, as you mentioned, this Parasite, which won Academy Awards in 2020, it won 4 Oscars, including, again, the Best Picture. So it just shows you this appeal of popular culture, how South Korean popular culture has expanded beyond music.
When you describe BTS and the economic impact, it sounds a lot like ABBA back in the 70s or 80s, and how it was a major export for Sweden. I don't know if BTS would appreciate me calling them the new ABBA, but as far as long-term success, why not? This is something that the Washington Post said, Sue. Squid Games, like Parasite before it, channels a kind of economic despair that most mainstream American film and television is loath or simply unwilling to explore. And I want to ask you about, is this a window into Korean culture writ large, not just popular culture? What does this tell us about the country? Often the types of movies or books or plays or whatever that succeeds within a country tells us a lot about the personality of the culture and the people. Is Squid Games, what does it tell us about Korea, South Korea in 2021?
So there is no doubt that South Korea does have income inequality, disparity, and the Korean public is very fixated on this. And you can see the theme of Parasite and the theme of the Squid Game is similar in that way. In fact, the North Koreans use this to criticize South Korea. North Koreans in their statement came out with, "Oh, this Squid Game, it just shows how horrible South Korean society is." But what it does show is that South Korea is now a thriving democracy, that it can criticize its own government and the issues that they have in the society. They have no problem talking about it. They have no problem showcasing it, right? It's not like South Korean government is trying to hide that and saying, "Oh, you can't make movies or films about this," unlike North Korea, or even I would dare to say China and other countries. So I think that actually shows you how much South Korea has arrived in terms of its democracy, that it's a very open society. But you're absolutely right. The theme is quite similar. South Koreans like to look at, what's going on within their own culture, and they don't have a problem criticizing it. And so, I think, with the Squid Game becoming the biggest show in Netflix's history in any language, hitting #1 spot all over the world, over 90 countries, I think that does also say obviously this message is resonating with the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, that's often how it works, right? If you have the right message at the right time, it catches on in ways that are surprising. So does it matter beyond entertainment and economics? Are there geopolitical advantages beyond that for a country to increase its soft power footprint?
I think so. Because the South Korea's soft power does not just end with popular culture, right? I mentioned other things too. And, the Pyeongchang Olympics in 2018 really set stage for additional South Korean soft power in the fields of sports. You might have heard about sportsmen and sportswomen dominating golf to archery. But beyond that, like look at education, right? South Korea's attraction for international students is also one of the critical sources of South Korean soft power, really helping shape other nations' view of South Korea. Number of foreign students studying in Korea grew at a pre-pandemic high of, I think it was like 160,000 foreign students in 2019. Compare the number to just, like 12,000 students in 2003. So, and I do think that matters when the students come and they go back, they do leave with a better impression of Korea. And again, then there's other things too in the contemporary arts and crafts, healthcare and whatnot, even food. But I do think all in all, it does mean something when there's a soft power. I don't know if you're familiar with Professor Joe Nye of Harvard, who really coined the term soft power. but it's really, it's an ability to attract others to get what you want. And there's different ways of doing it, right? You can do it through coercion. You can do it through threats of coercion, right? Or you can do it through payments and inducements, so carrots and sticks. But soft power means you're doing it through attraction, right? So South Korea, soft power, it means they have the ability to get what they want through attraction rather than coercion or payment. And when you have all these powers, right? You can do it through coercion, payment, but also attraction. It's a smart power. So it's obviously, it means something. I think it means something greater than, we don't pay enough attention to it. But I do think it's significant from South Korean government's perspective.
Does any of that influence make its way across the demilitarized zone to the north, or is that a complete shutdown of incoming?
So North Korea is completely a country that's closed off from the rest of the world. The regime survives through ideological indoctrination and monopoly on information and so on. But even the regime can't completely control it. They are trying to crack down on it. They close the border, but unwanted foreign information is seeping through China-North Korea border. And so these South Korean soap operas and K-pop, they are getting into North Korea that the regime does not want. North Korean citizens are literally risking their lives listening to and watching South Korean soap operas. Every North Korean defector I've ever met with and dealt with and talked to, they were more up to date on South Korean soap opera than I was. So people are watching it. So it does, I think, have an impact. Now, does it mean that North Korea is going to overthrow the regime? No. But over the long term, when you look at the longer picture, I think it does matter that they are questioning the regime propaganda. They know the regime myth. All of this is sort of propaganda because they are watching these shows, and the regime can't completely control the information that's getting.
The power of ideas.
Yes, absolutely.
So we've talked a lot about how this is a global phenomenon, 90 plus countries, the top rated show on Netflix. What about within South Korea itself? Are the things we're talking about, whether it's the movie Parasite or the television program or television series Squid Games, are they as popular within the country as they've become outside the country?
It's funny because they're kind of surprised by it, right? I mean, yes, they saw Parasite and they said, okay, that's one of many good movies. Minari too, that's, by the way, another Korean-American movie that was very popular, Minari. Mm-hmm. And Squid Game, I think there's more of sort of, wow, what's such a big deal with this particular show? I mean, they like it, but they're used to having many dramas and soap operas and movies that were probably as good. So they don't quite know what to make of this Squid Game being such a sensation, but they do watch it. I think they watched it. If they didn't watch it, if not everybody watched it, they're watching it because everybody else in the world is watching it.
So is there more to come? How do you see, as far as if this is some scale of 1 to 10 and the potential is at a certain number, what is the ceiling? Do you see this as a growing phenomena, the growth of South Korean soft power?
Yes, I do. I don't think this is climaxing. This has been growing. And, when you look back to even late 1990s, during the 1997 IMF crisis, when the economy collapsed, the Korean government really decided to sort of invest in it. So first, President Kim Dae-jung, he doubled down. So instead of building real highways for the Korean automobiles, he actually laid groundwork for information highway, internet, and then that ended up having technology fuel the economy, and then importantly, pop culture. And then we saw, government investing more and more on not only technology companies, but dipping into cultural space and then content space. And now the Korean government recognized that this is a source of power. So they're investing in it. The government is all in, the private sector is in. And so a lot of us who've been watching Korean film and Korean cinema, and they've been very good for a number of years. This wasn't just, Parasite wasn't the first movie, you know. There were many movies that were good. You just that it took the world, you know, some time to get caught up on in it. So I think this sort of just really the beginning. I think we can expect more to come. And we are. And then, you know, the way the Koreans are investing in pop culture is, it's like they're producing these K-pop bands that's, you know, at incredible speed. So it's not just BTS, you know, like my kids have gone to see Red Velvet, you know, like there's other, you know, other K-pop bands and so on. So I think there's more to come.
Yeah, we had the British invasion in previous generation, and now we have the Korean invasion of pop culture and music. Well, thank you for sharing this with us today. You know, it's an exciting story to follow. And as you mentioned, it's nice to follow some positive news from the peninsula versus worrying about the North Korean nuclear program. And we're glad to have you aboard to help guide us through this story as it evolves.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Yeah, well, we'll do it again.
Okay.
Sumi Terry is our guest. You can find more of her work at the Wilson Center, and we hope you enjoyed this edition of Wilson Center Now. And until then, for all of us at the center, we hope you'll join us next time. Thanks for watching.